Have you ever seriously asked yourself this question? Could life really have come from just matter and energy without any mind behind it? No creator, no design, just atoms, time, and chance. It's one of the most important questions you'll ever ask, because how you answer it shapes everything else. Your view of science, morality, purpose, even your identity. Let's take a deep look at it. Let's begin with a basic truth. In the scientific worldview, every effect has a cause. Nothing just happens without a reason. Not stars, not storms, not life. So when we ask, could life come from just matter and energy? We're not asking whether it's hard. We're asking if it's possible under a natural, mindless system. And here's where the problem begins. The idea that life emerged from a pool of non-living chemicals, what scientists call abiogenesis, is not just unobserved. It's scientifically and philosophically broken. Why? Because we're not talking about simple reactions like salt dissolving in water. We're talking about dead matters producing something it doesn't contain: information, purpose, self-replication, metabolism, error correction, and consciousness. These things don't emerge naturally from rocks, air, and lightning, no matter how much time you give them. To this day, no experiment has ever produced life from non-life, not even close. And this isn't just because we're still working on it. It's because the more we understand about biology, the more we see that life requires a level of information, coordination, and precision that nature doesn't spontaneously produce. You've probably heard this before. We already proved life can come from non-life. Look at the Miller-Urey experiment. It created life in a lab. This claim shows up in textbooks, documentaries, debates, and YouTube comment sections. But let's slow down and take a serious look at what the Miller-Urey experiment actually was and what it wasn't. Back in 1952, two scientists, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey, set out to test an idea. Could the building blocks of life form naturally under conditions thought to exist on the early Earth? They created a controlled experiment meant to simulate what they believed the primitive Earth's atmosphere looked like. They filled a closed system with methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapor, gases they assumed were present billions of years ago. Then they passed electrical sparks through the mix to simulate lightning. After about a week, they found a few simple amino acids had formed, basic building blocks of proteins, and that's it. No life, no cell, no DNA, no proteins, just a small collection of simple organic molecules far from anything alive. But here's where it gets interesting. The very fact that people had to design the experiment tells us something profound. Think about it. Two highly intelligent scientists had to choose the gases, carefully regulate the temperature and pressure, simulate lightning in just the right way, remove contaminants and stabilize the environment, and then collect the results in a safe container. They didn't just shake some rocks together and walk away. They intentionally arranged the conditions to give the experiment the best chance of producing something useful. That alone destroys the argument, because if the best attempt to prove that life can arise from non-life requires intelligent design, then life didn't happen without intelligence, even in the lab. In other words, intelligence had to come first. So, ironically, the Miller-Urey experiment actually points us back to a designer. It unintentionally proves the exact opposite of what many people claim. Even more, the experiment was based on flawed assumptions. Today, scientists agree that the early Earth's atmosphere was probably nothing like what Miller and Urey simulated. It likely contained carbon dioxide and nitrogen, not the highly reactive gases like methane and ammonia. And when you run the same experiment with a more realistic atmosphere, you don't get amino acids. You get almost nothing useful at all. And even if you did get all 20 amino acids needed for proteins, which Miller didn't, you still haven't built a cell. You haven't created life. Because life isn't just about molecules. It's about information, a specific arrangement of parts that produces function. DNA is a code. Proteins must fold into exact shapes. Cells need membranes, energy, reproduction, and error correction systems. None of that was produced in this experiment. Let's be honest, this is like putting rubber, glass, and metal in a blender, hitting puree, and hoping a Tesla drives out. So next time someone says, but Miller and Urey created life in the lab, you can say this: no, they didn't. And the fact that two intelligent beings had to carefully design the setup actually proves the point, that life requires intelligence. The experiment didn't show that nature could produce life. It showed that even the simplest building blocks of life require mind, intentionality, and control. The very things random matter and energy do not provide. It's no wonder that after more than 70 years, we're still no closer to creating life from scratch. Because life isn't an accident. It's not chaos turning into consciousness. It's design, and design requires a designer. John chapter 1 verse 3 says, "Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made." The truth is, Miller and Urey didn't disprove God. They just highlighted our need for him. If this helped you rethink what that experiment really proved, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content that explores life's biggest questions with faith and reason. And if you've ever had this argument thrown at you, share this video, because honestly, the more you study the science, the more obvious it becomes. Life didn't create itself. It was created intelligently, beautifully, and purposefully by God. Let's make an important distinction here. Some might say, well, you've never observed God either. That's true. We haven't empirically observed God under a microscope, but that's not the same kind of problem. Why? Because God is not a physical object within the system. God is not like a tree or a planet that you go out and measure. He is the foundation for the entire system, the uncaused, immaterial, necessary being that explains why anything exists at all. Saying we haven't observed God is like saying we haven't found the author inside the pages of the book. Of course not. The author is not in the story. He's outside of it. But with abiogenesis, we're not talking about the cause of everything. We're talking about the cause of life. Within this universe, governed by physical laws, chemical limits, and informational boundaries. And in that framework, you can't get life from non-life by chance. Not without cheating the rules. Naturalism, the belief that only matter and energy exist, can describe how living things change over time through natural selection. But it can't explain how life got started in the first place. Evolution doesn't begin until life already exists, with DNA, reproduction, and metabolism already in place. So when we ask if matter and energy created life without help, we're not just saying we don't see it happening. We're saying everything we do know about chemistry, information theory, and logic says it shouldn't happen at all. Even Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheist biologists, once admitted the origin of life is a deeply difficult problem. We may not yet even know how to ask the right questions. That's because, honestly, the answer points away from randomness and towards something far greater. Let's talk numbers for a second. Sir Fred Hoyle once compared the odds of a single functioning cell arising by chance to a tornado assembling a Boeing 747 from a junkyard. He estimated the odds at 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power. That's a 1 followed by 40,000 zeros. To put that in perspective, there are roughly 10 to the 80th atoms in the entire observable universe. So we're not talking about something that's just unlikely. We're talking about something that's mathematically impossible in the time and space available. Even the formation of a single functional protein, a chain of amino acids that folds correctly and performs a biological task, is wildly improbable. The odds of forming a relatively short protein of 150 amino acids by chance is about 1 in 10 to the 164th power. That's a 1 followed by 164 zeros. Just for one protein, a single cell needs hundreds or thousands of proteins functioning in precise order. And remember, this is assuming that all the raw materials, the temperature, the pH, the atmosphere, and everything else is already perfect, which in itself is another long list of impossibilities. The math doesn't lie. Blind chance didn't create life. Life is rigged toward order, intelligence, and design. Let's talk about DNA, the molecule of life. Inside every living cell is a vast digital information system. DNA is like a 4-letter alphabet, coding instructions for how to build proteins, regulate function, and even replicate the cell itself. It's not just chemical, it's linguistic. It carries code. It conveys meaning. Think about that. A cell is like a microscopic factory with thousands of machines, each built according to plans written in a language we're only beginning to understand. And somehow, that system of digital code appeared out of nowhere in a universe that supposedly had no intelligence. Here's an example. A simple E. coli bacterium contains about 4 million DNA base pairs, which make up roughly 1,000 genes. Those genes function like software programs. If even a single key instruction is corrupted, the entire system breaks down. Now imagine this happening by accident, with no guiding mind. Would you ever believe a smartphone, a satellite, or even a one-page website built itself with no designer? Of course not. And yet, your DNA is far more complex than all of those things combined. Let's go even deeper. Not only are we alive, we are aware. We have consciousness, the ability to think, reason, love, choose, create, sacrifice, and even ask questions like this one. But here's the catch. Matter and energy by themselves have no reason to produce consciousness. Rocks don't think. Chemicals don't care. Atoms don't ask questions about truth, morality, or beauty. And yet you're doing that right now. If we are just biological machines, if our brains are just moist computers assembled by physics and chemistry, then why do we have free will? Why do we long for meaning? Why does love matter? Why does justice matter? Why do we feel guilt or hope or wonder? These things point to something beyond physical matter. They point to a mind behind the universe, an eternal personal creator who didn't just give us life, but gave us a soul. You see, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, that God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That breath, spirit in Hebrew, is more than just oxygen. It's the divine spark. And even today, that divine presence whispers to every human being. Romans chapter 1, verse 20 says that God's invisible qualities, his power and divine nature, are clearly seen through what has been made, so that no one is without excuse. Every time you marvel at the stars, every time your conscience speaks, every time your heart longs for more than this world can offer, that's not just emotion, that's evidence. It's the Holy Spirit quietly pointing us back to the God who made us. Yes, the universe is complex. Yes, science gives us incredible insights into how things work, but science can't tell us why they exist in the first place. It can't explain why the universe is fine-tuned for life, or why we even care about truth and beauty in the first place. That's not chemistry, that's spirit. Some say that believing in God is blind faith, but in reality, it takes more blind faith to believe that life is an accident than to believe it was created with purpose. You are not here because the universe rolled lucky dice. You are not here because particles bumped into each other for billions of years and decided to create a symphony, a heart, a family, a soul. You are here because a loving, intelligent creator designed life to exist and designed you to know him. Psalm 139 verse 14 says, "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." That's not poetic exaggeration. It's scientific reality. So, could life have come from just matter and energy? Technically, you can believe anything. But logically, mathematically, and spiritually, it makes far more sense to believe that life came from life, that intelligence came from an eternal intelligence, that your heart, mind, and soul were designed not by chance, but by God. If this gave you something to think about, please like the video, leave a comment with your questions or reflections, and subscribe for more content that brings together science, reason, and faith. And if you know someone who's been told that life is just a lucky accident, share this with them. Because the more you look at the odds, the more you study life itself, the more you'll see. You were never a random result. You were created by design, on purpose, and for a purpose.